Do you know one of the reasons why the Soviet Union failed economically? Why its enemies, like the United States, managed to dominate them? It's because the Soviet Union had a lot of incompetent people in positions of power. How do you get to the place where you get incompetent people in positions of power? And by incompetent, I mean people who are not very skilled at their job being put in charge, to the point where the underling of that person can do the job 10 times better than the boss can. How do you get to that point? I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to use a pop culture reference because that's the best thing you can do in 2021. You know, when you want to have an important political discussion, you talk about Harry Potter. You compare things with the Red Skull. Yes, Marvel compared Jordan Peterson with the Red Skull. I'm going to talk about it in my other channel. Very interesting. Fascinating. Compare people with Thanos. Pop culture. Survivor. Have you seen that show? Interesting show. Quite cancerous. Very addictive. You watch one episode and then you can't stop watching. And then you realize you're wasting time. But is it really a waste of time? I don't think so, because it helped me understand a thing or two about humanity. Survivor is about getting random people to work together on an island. And they have to find various tasks that they're good at in order to contribute to the tribe. Whether that is fishing, hunting, building stuff, everyone has to contribute. And at the end of the week, a person gets eliminated. Now, logic would have it that if you are very good at surviving, if you're Bear Grylls, and you're really good at providing for the tribe, you're really good at doing your job, you're going to win the competition. But that's not the case. I don't think that has ever been the case in any season of Survivor that I have watched. And it goes the same for Big Brother, by the way, which is on a similar premise. Like, people have to do various competitions in order to prove that they can win them so that the household benefits. It's never the case for the best person to win these competitions. It's usually the manipulative person that is below average in their skills that are able to win the competition. In the early stages of the competition, it is indeed a meritocracy. The people who cannot contribute at all and the people who are dragging everyone down, they get eliminated. But shortly after, what ends up happening is that various people are going to form groups and alliances, and they are not going to vote based on who is dragging everyone down. They are going to vote based on who they perceive is better than them so that they can eliminate the competition from the event. And after an alliance manages to take out the other team, they're going to turn on each other. They're going to have more alliances, and it stops being about who can contribute. It stops being about who can help everyone else the best and put them in a position of power. And it starts being on petty drama and differences. And at the end of the day, it's really about the average person that knows they don't have the skill to start manipulating everyone around them so that they turn on each other. And then the person manages to ascend the ranks and hopefully win the competition. And there's various strategies for doing this. Usually convincing a competitor that other competitors are out to get them even if they're not. You can have either a man or a woman seducing someone from the opposite sex that is better than them at the competition, and then using that emotional leverage in order to form this type of intimate alliance. And this is, in my opinion, what cancel culture is doing to society. Because what is cancel culture at the end of the day? It's a tool that can be used in order to get rid of people from a business that has nothing to do with how much they contribute to that business. So you can have at a comic book industry the best artist, the best storyteller, and he can continue to be the best. His presence there can continue to bring wealth and money to the company. But if someone digs through his social media, if someone finds out something that he said, which is cancel worthy, and he said it 7 or 8 years ago, they can use that leverage in order to get them fired from the company to make room for a mediocre person to take that seat. Because it's all about the power at the end of the day. It's all about taking that seat. It's all about ascending the corporate ladder, not by being better than the person on top of you, but by getting the person on top of you fired for his personal opinions and then taking over. Now, in the beginning of cancel culture, some of these opinions were legit horrible and horrifying. But once the Rubicon was passed, once it was acceptable to cancel people, the bar was ever lower and lower and lower, to the point where a football player was kicked off LA Galaxy for things his wife said from another country. You had a race car driver being in the position to lose his sponsorship because of stuff his father said on a radio show before the guy was even born. So it's getting to ridiculous levels. No one is safe. I guess the only standard that remains you will get fired if it creates a public scandal. We have that in Eastern Europe. And it was under communism as well. I mean, I guess it was a lot more transparent, like why you would get punished for ideological dissent. It was if it creates a public scandal. So it doesn't matter what you do, okay? You can be the most racist person ever. You can even be a member of the Spooky Ghosts, if you know what I mean. As long as it doesn't create a public scandal, you're fine. But if it creates a public scandal, even if it's something minute, even if you're reproducing a joke from South Park, or for example, there was recently a young lady who, when she was in, I believe it was 10th grade, she was singing a rap song, uploaded it on the internet, and one of her colleagues took that song, edited it out of context, and gave it to the New York Times, which ran an editorial, and the lady lost her position at a university that she got accepted in because of it. Right? It's ridiculous. And people are noticing that it's ridiculous, and this is why I think it's important to talk about it now. Because, you see, most people do not care about cultural issues. It's the truth, it's reality, you have to accept it. Most people don't care about any of this. What most people care about is going to work, making money so that they can come home and provide for their family. That's what most people are haywire to believe, and that's a good thing, by the way. I don't think that's an evil thing. But you have to understand the reality in order to know how to influence culture. And the way to influence culture is to understand that sometimes most people do get involved into cultural issues. And it's usually when you can convince the person that it can affect them, or it can affect their children if they don't get involved. And I think we have reached that point. Because this particular issue, which is cancel culture, is now being discussed on The Atlantic, as Jordan Peterson points out. And The Atlantic is a very far left-leaning publication. And they supported cancel culture for quite a while. I think they were one of the first supporters, if I'm not mistaken. And it's also being discussed, again, with Teen Vogue editor getting fired, which is a very interesting story in and of itself. And it's not just about the fact that it has been done, but it's the precedent that, yet again, it sets. A precedent which has been set a long time ago, but now people are starting to notice it just because it's so public and so out there. So yeah, when you have The Atlantic and Jordan Peterson talking about the same subject and agreeing with each other, now is the time to get involved. Now is the time to talk about it, and I'm going to give you some arguments which you can say that are going to convince people that you're right, because this is the goal, okay? Like if you as a person manages to convince 5 other people that this is a problem and they should get involved, this is called winning. You know, with the limited resources that I have, the limited table here with the little microphone that I have, this is the best I can do. If I can convince 5 people that before were for cancel culture and now they realize, okay, maybe this is going a little bit too far, then I consider that a win. If I had more money, like millions of dollars, then I would have my goals higher. But right now, my goals are very tiny. So let's look at the editor from Teen Vogue. Now, I'm a person who goes on the Twitter a lot, and I can tell you the vibe and the culture and the atmosphere on this left-leaning infested platform. On the Twitter, among very progressive circles, it used to be acceptable to be racist against whites and Asians. And by acceptable, what I mean is that you wouldn't be called out if you did it. So if you're a progressive person with rose in your bio or a hammer and sickle and you said something disparaging about the Asian community, Very rarely would you be called out. It wasn't even a bannable offense. Now, to me, it's a little bit baffling on why this is. I mean, just because you can do something, just because no one punishes you for doing something, doesn't mean you should do it. Like, no one is forcing you to do it, to say negative things about Asians, even if you're not getting called out, right? But for several years, a lot of people were saying these things just because they could get away with it. Also, anti-Semitism towards Israel seemed to be okay among these groups. They're not okay with me, by the way. Like, I'm never going to say anything disparaging towards Asians. I mean, they bring anime to the world. Why would I say anything bad about them? But I know a plethora of left-leaning activists which did say negative things about Asians. And it even got to the point where universities were actively discriminating against Asians because they viewed that Asians are getting really high grades and they were overrepresented in those universities according to their number in the population. So they tried to social engineer in order to get other minorities in. But in order to get other minorities in, they had to kick this minority out. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's not my ideology, okay? I'm not the one making it. I'm just reporting on the facts. So it was hilarious when I saw a lot of corporations disavowing racism towards Asians because I knew this will get a lot of left-leaning people in trouble. Not right-leaning people, because most right-leaning people have evolved, okay? It's like evolution. When you have a hostile environment, you learn to adapt. So most right-wing people that have survived are most likely not racist. It's not that they're hiding their power level. No, they're legitimately not racist because the moment you say even a South Park joke, you get terminated. So the ones that remain are the ones that are pure of heart and pure of spirit. But when it comes to the left-leaning people, they haven't evolved because they were thriving in this environment. It wasn't hostile for them, which is why they are now into big trouble for things they have said in the past. And one of these people is the Teen Vogue editor who had some tweets where she was a teenager. And these tweets got her fired from her job at Teen Vogue. And it wasn't that Teen Vogue decided to fire her. It was because one of the advertisers at Teen Vogue, the company, which I believe had a seven-figure transaction with Teen Vogue, right? That's quite a lot. So they pulled out. Teen Vogue lost a seven-figure sum, so they decided to fire her for tweets that she said when she was a teenager. Now, if I was a culture warrior and I wanted to win, I should view the world based on tribes. I would view like the right-wingers. These are my allies. These are my homeboys. If something bad happens to them, I will speak out. But if something bad happens to the left, I will be like, yeah, I know it's bad, but I'm not talking. I mean, not my problem. Not my fight to battle. You know, like let them fix their own stuff. But I can't. You know, I legitimately can't. I don't have this mindset. Which I know is the type of mindset that can lead to victory, but I guess it's my character that's holding me back. I legitimately don't like to see injustice being done, even if it's towards a person that perhaps supports cancel culture, and if it happened to be, they wouldn't speak out. But, you know, it's just like, it's fucked up. Like, come on, let's admit it. Can we admit that it's messed up? And it's not even about the lady, because I don't know this person. I can't say I care about someone that I've never met. I don't know, maybe she's like the most lovely lady in the universe. Like if I were to exchange a couple of words with her, maybe we would click and we would become besties. We would be pen pals. Her from the United States, I from Romania, and we would have like the most beautiful relationship over the internet. I don't know, you know, or maybe she's a harpy. I can't say because I don't know her. Okay, so it's not that necessarily I care about her as a person, but it's like I don't like to live in a world where this is the norm. Like, this is a horrible place to live in, and Jordan Peterson accurately points out why. And a lot of people are criticizing Jordan for, you know, siding with the enemy. It's like, no, it's not about siding with the enemy. It's about, like, trying to explain people why this is bad. Some people legitimately don't get it, and they need the explanation. They need to understand, look, if it happened to this person, like, I know you don't care about other people, but, like, think about it this way. It can happen to you. It can happen to your kids. It's messed up. Like, you need to speak out against it. It's not okay. And the reason it's not okay, as Jordan Peterson says it, name me a human being that didn't do bad shit when they were a teenager. At least once. I did bad stuff when I was a teenager. Okay, I'm going to do the worst thing ever, use the internet as my confession booth. I committed crimes when I was a kid. Do you know what I did? I broke a window. I picked up a stone and I threw it out. Do you know why? Because it was fun, that's why. I enjoyed seeing that window break. There was no one around and I wanted to hear the sound of a stone breaking glass. And I was like, yes. And no one caught me. And I lived with that for years to come. You know what else I did? I went on the bus without paying a ticket. Like, I went without a ticket on the bus and no one caught me. And I did that multiple times. Until eventually I got caught and I had to pay a fine. But I only paid it once. And in my head, the math was like, how many times did I go without a ticket versus the fine that I paid eventually? And I tried to balance it up. It's like, is it worth it to go without a ticket or not? Like, my criminal mind was at work. But here's my point, all right? Like, when I did those things, they weren't recorded. They weren't public knowledge. No one knew about them. Imagine now, companies that I want to work with would have access to that information, that they would be like, oh, we're not going to hire a delinquent, an ex-juvenile delinquent. No, you have, like, clearly you have the mind towards the criminal element. And no, we don't want those type of people in our company. Because that's the world new people live in. Okay, that's the thing. Like, you go on social media, you say something, years later it can be used against you. No one is going to be safe. And you know, when you have the opportunity to get anyone canceled if you create a scandal. And it's going to be exactly like Survivor. Like, every single corporation is like Survivor. You're going to have people within the company forming alliances and trying to find a target. And because everyone is cancelable, everyone has said bad stuff. All they have to do is to find that bad stuff and then get them fired. Exactly like they do on Survivor Island. They gather around with the torches and it's like, who is the person we're going to target this month? That's the guy. Okay, let's go through his social media. And they go and eventually they find something. They create a scandal. That person gets kicked from the company. A mediocre person takes his place. And it's always going to be a mediocre person. Because if it was an actual skilled person, they wouldn't need to do these shitty tactics in order to get there. And every company is trying to turn like Survivor. Where you have like the community deciding which employee of the month gets fired. And that's why companies, you know, they get woke, they go broke. It's not necessarily because of the product they put out. But like when you get woke, you have the Survivor event happening within your company. And eventually you end up with talentless people at the top.